Hey, this is Max, student of PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and today's Monday, January 3rd, and this will be our chart lesson for the day. Hope everybody had a happy new year and took somewhat of a break towards the end of the year, and everybody's refreshed and ready for the grind of 2022. Here's the chart. Here's how I saw the trading day. Basically, we started off in this green tight overnight range with this red line indicating the gap. We gapped up overnight and we made a measured move and then kind of turned into this gray range. And then it was just a range day. We had, a downtrend, uptrend, downtrend, uptrend. So it was a range day. It's a little bit of a difficult range day. There were some funky retests in there, I would say, and it wasn't the easiest day of trading easy second entries at the key entry point, but that's how it goes sometimes. So I'm going to go ahead and erase this initial green range. Just wanted it up there so people could see how I was seeing it. I think the gray range was pretty good. And then yeah, you just had to kind of hone in on the micro channels and play them. So let's get into it. All right. So when I came in, I saw this gap and we had that green channel that I probably shouldn't have erased just yet, but we had support here, and then we had the highs, and we had a first entry long. We closed below the EMA, and then we get a nice easy failed second entry long here, right to start the day before the 6:30 open. That was a nice easy trade. It is a breakout pullback as well, so that could be a little bit of concern, but with the nice setup and the context more than likely going back to test the lows, I like that trade. All right, a little bit later, we get here back to the support and we make a higher low. And the reason I have this marked green is because it's a little close to the EMA. Um, we're not sure if we're going to necessarily get a scalp there, so it's a little aggressive, but it's a higher low off of support. So I'd make sure you have enough room, but you don't always get that. So it's a little bit aggressive for my personality, especially I haven't looked at a chart really in 3 weeks. So I'm gonna be a little more conservative. Um, these first couple days as I ease back into the market. We push through. That trade works. We end up pushing through the EMA, and then we get a failed second entry long here. But again, not the best setup. You want reversals to close above the EMA if you're going long, and you don't get that, but you got 1, 2 legs up, and more than likely we're gonna get a second swing and a second leg up. So it's still aggressive. It's a failed at second entry short, but it's not the best setup. That trade works out, and then we have a new high here, and we're still looking for longs here, right? So we would be looking to. We don't know that we're gonna get this big sell-off to clear the gap. I mean, you're kind of assuming that may happen, but you'd want like a confirmed trend to go for that. So around here, you'd be looking for longs. So you have this new high, you get a first entry long, but then you push towards the EMA and you close on it, and then you close near it again. There's a lot of acceptance there, so no reason to go long for the retest of this channel that I have here. But sure, and it's a little congested, but sure enough, you get a failed second entry long that ticks up and then closes on its low with that huge bearish bar. That's a huge bar. I think you could have got in with 3 points if you would have entered on the engulfing bar. But it makes it a little tough because you see there's a little congestion there. So that's why I have it marked green. But that's an aggressive one and it works out. If you ride that down to the gap, that's over 10 points. So that's a nice trade. Unfortunately, you don't really get another opportunity to take advantage of this sell-off. Um, I drew this yellow channel, and I mean it looks valid, and you do play off of it here, but you don't really get a good setup. This right here is a first entry, and then your second entry is not really good here. But notice you have this new high, and you get a first entry long and then a second entry long, trying to make a retest of this short-term correction trend. And so I have that marked green as well. It's a big bar. It it's not really that great of a trick and a trap, so I have it marked green. It works. It's an easy scalp, but you don't get much more than that. And then we kind of go sideways a little bit. And so what's happening here is I believe that prices are fighting between this yellow channel and this correction channel, and so you can kind of predict the congestion there. And notice you have some resistance here, and so when you get this new low and then a first entry short and then kind of a failed breakout with the second entry short, that's a decent opportunity. It's still green because you always do want to wait on a higher low. That's the safest way to do it. But that's still a good trade, and if you understand the context of a failed breakout and a second entry, and that's a nice setup. You do get a lower high right here, but the problem is it's right into the midline, and so hopefully that didn't trip up too many people because it's a lower high, but not a lot of people were believing in it, obviously, because they got trapped. And then notice we do have that new high, and we get a first entry long pullback, failed second entry long right there. You get that inside bar. That's a nice trade to go short. Again, another scalp. You don't get anything too crazy out of it. And then we have to wonder if this blue channel, excuse me, if this blue channel is valid. Notice you have this trend. You finally get the push to the new high, and you get a couple legs back, and you get a second swing here. So draw your trend line there and see what happens. And notice this double bottom here, and it's lower than that swing low. So double bottom, first entry short, and then it breaks out of the range, makes a second entry short, and then reverses and closes on its high. That's a breakout pullback. It is a failed second entry short, but it's still a breakout pullback, so that's the reason I don't have it blue, right? But that's a pretty good one, and that takes off, and that's a decent trade there as well. You do come back to the trend line here, but it's only a first entry. You could argue it's a hidden second entry. If you see that new high, you're pulling back first entry. It doesn't tick higher, but it's clearly, well, not clearly, but there's two legs back to the trend line there. Um, you could argue for that to be green. It's a very nice signal bar at a key entry point, but it didn't come all the way back to the resistance, so it's aggressive. Finally, we get a close outside, and then we get a first entry short, sorry, first entry long, and then we get a weak signal bar, not strong rejection at the EMA, so you're really not looking to go long there, and you can see it's a little congestive, but I marked this orange one because I got a couple questions about this, and you notice that new high, it's a first entry long pullback, second entry long, and it traps the people who are trying to trap the longs. And this is why I'm such a strong advocate for blue trades at key entry points, because although that is a setup, it failed, and the reason it failed, and a lot of people need to understand is the majority of your trades should be taken at like established key entry points. And so if you're just looking for traps and failures and the context isn't exactly clear, this is what can happen to you. And so unfortunately, if you get stopped out there, you just get caught in congestion and just being too early. The congestion is predictable because we have this blue channel and prices are attempting to retest it, but we also have the short-term channel, and so this congestion is predictable. So draw your range parameters, which you can see some support there and the double top there, and then play range rules. And if you notice, you have a new high here, pull back first entry, and then pull back second entry. So if you break lower than that, that's a failed second entry long into resistance, but that's just one tick up, so that's the reason I have this marked green. You could also look at this as a double top, And so if you count it that way, this green arrow is really the first entry long, and then you're pulling back. And then here's your failed second entry long. And notice that trend line's kind of holding. And so going long right there, going short right there is not a bad idea. And it works out. You do have to be concerned about the support here. And so actually I should probably make that green as well. Because the bias I would say is up, so I'm gonna change that from red to green. I didn't take that trade, but it's one that people are probably looking at and people probably entered in. So if you see this red channel and you think that people are gonna get not be able to push to a new high because of the resistance, and remember we got that yellow channel that I thought was valid, so you might think prices are gonna go down and retest the lows. So there's some validity to attempting to go short there. It works out. Again, you have another kind of breakout pullback here, but it's right into the support again. We go on down, and then we break out of this range here, and then we get a first entry, but we don't really get back to that trend line. If you notice though, we have a high here. It's higher than that one, and then we have a first entry long, and then you pull back. Doesn't break lower, but it's a triple test. Notice this high, lower, lower. So you could argue for a failed second entry there. It works, but again, it's a green trade in my opinion, just not a ideal, toss, easy softball toss, which is what we like, which is what I prefer. We break the red channel, and we have the strong correction. And notice this new low, we get a first entry short, and then we push up, and then you get this nice bearish bar far away from the EMA. Only problem is you have this trend line, and it could hold and trap you and easily go higher. So, but it is a second entry far away from the EMA, and prices just broke out of this red channel. So another green trade. Um, all right, so now we're kind of bouncing off of the support, and it's holding. It broke out here, held, and then it held again. So more than likely, we're gonna go higher. Um, and then you see here, I have this green trade, and it's marked repeat because it's a repeat of this breakout pullback. So notice you had the resistance, you broke out, you had a breakout pullback, a failed second entry long, and it worked out well. Same thing here. You have a little bit of resistance, and I would say the bias is a little bit to the downside. But we break through. Notice this new low, first entry short, push through the resistance, and then we get a second entry short that traps a lot of people and reverses on its high. That's a nice trade, but it's aggressive because you are going short or going long. My apologies, at a resistance level. So there's that trade. Then you have this new high here, pulling back. You get a first entry. Then we don't really have rejection, and the trend line doesn't really hold. And you get a weak signal bar there for a second entry. That's a decent trap. It works for a scalp, but not much more. And then we're off to the races again. And oops. All right, so we had this blue channel kind of play out, and we had to close outside of it. And on the way to a new high, we kind of go into another channel. Um, draw your trend line there off of what looks like a strong second swing, and see if there's some opportunity. Notice we got this double bottom here, then we get a first entry short, and then a second entry short that fails, but it's far away from the EMA. Not an ideal setup, and if you got tricked into going long there, you got burned just to watch it go exactly where you thought it was. So, got to take these trades close to the EMA or, confirm key entry points. But I notice I do have this trade right here marked green, and the reason I have that is because it is a second entry, it's just not a traditional one. Notice we have two legs up, but then notice here on this red bar, one leg pullback, and then it does go higher, but it's two legs to the EMA. So 1, 2. So it's a second entry. It's a type of second entry. It's a nice signal bar, strong rejection, more than likely going to be a key entry point. Um, it's a little aggressive. That's why it's marked green, but that's a great trade. Get a higher low here, but you're a little far away from the EMA, and you see how you can get burned. But it is that does confirm the trend line. So, and the context is we're more than likely going to go and try to retest the highs of the range because we're staying in within the overnight. So you could argue for that as well to be aggressive. And then I think this is the last trade of the day. So you get this low, you test it once, you test it twice, then you push down one last time, reverse, and close on your high. There is some rejection there, sorry, resistance, but more than likely this trend is going to get a retest. This is starting to look like a strong trend. You're getting rejection anytime you get to the EMA. So I think the pros far outweigh the cons here, and it's a triple test, strong signal bar. The context is right of retesting this green channel and going to test the highs of the gray channel. So I think you got to take that one. And that's how I saw it today. Like I said, not the easiest day, not a ton of blue second entries at the key entry point that's just easy. There was a lot of retests that didn't get fulfilled. You see this yellow one here didn't get fulfilled, and then this blue one didn't get fulfilled at all at first. It does over here. And the red channel, you get a break and you don't get a retest of the low. Um, so yeah, a little bit tricky. I thought there would definitely be some fireworks for the first day back, but if you look on the daily chart, we have it's pretty congestive, so it's not surprising that it was a range day. But yeah, that's what I saw today. I'm excited to be back. I was getting a little stir crazy. Um, yeah, we filled the gap, and then we just stayed in the range and had a couple of trends, and that's how I saw it. So hopefully you liked the video and this is helpful and you did well today and people are excited to be back, and if you have any questions just let me know. So all right, that ends it for me. Yeah, see you again soon.